So you've decided to move to a different country. Congratulations. Now comes the fun part. Actually figuring out how to do it without completely ruining your life.
Don't forget this one and these papers.
I'm Carlos, and this is everything we've learned about preparing for an international move that no one tells you about. Last week I told you how we decided to leave Portugal for Norway. Today I'm sharing with you the 6 months of pure chaos that followed. Job hunting in a country you have never been through. Buying winter clothes when you're used to a Mediterranean weather, and trying to plan a 3,000 kilometers road trip. But before we dive in, let's be clear with what we are working with. We had about 1,500 euros in savings, 2 retail jobs that we needed to quit, a very spoiled dog, a tiny car, and we had 0 connections to Norway, except of course for our friend Daniel. We had about 6 months to make this happen. 6 months to figuring out jobs, housing, transportation, put money together and change our life forever. This wasn't a carefully planned career move, this was a figuring it out as we went. So if you're watching this and thinking, I could never do that, trust me, we almost couldn't either. First priority, jobs, because Norwegian rent isn't going to pay itself with Portuguese savings. Daniel helped us by sharing with us some Norwegian job websites and giving us information about the company that he was working for, cleaning construction sites and the outside windows of tall buildings. But it was thanks to Daniel's brother, Claudio, who I met longer than Daniel and with who I actually worked with in the past, that we had the real breakthrough. Claudio shared with us the contact of an old company that they both have worked with that supplies salmon factories all around Norway with workers. This company was experienced in hiring Portuguese and other nationalities, and they really liked us because we were reliable and hard workers. When Claudio reached out to them about us, they were genuinely interested. So we have 2 tracks now, applying for jobs on the websites that Daniel shared with us, and now Claudio connection with these salmon factories. The factory work wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, they paid well, and most of all, they were experienced at hiring people from other countries. I also spent hours on fin.no, nav.no, and LinkedIn reaching out to companies and explaining them our situation. And out of around 20 emails that I sent, I got 1 response back, and it was a big no. And of course it was a big no, because apparently I needed to speak Norwegian. So next challenge, where are we actually going to live? Daniel was in Trondheim, but we quickly realized that we couldn't just follow him there. The rental market was competitive and we needed to be strategic. We spent weeks comparing cities, Bergen, Oslo, Stavanger, Trondheim, and here's what we've learned. Location matters for more than just jobs. Some cities have better public transportations, others better jobs, some have lower cost of living but fewer job opportunities, and others good job opportunities but are more isolated cities. My wife made a binder. Yes, really, she did it. Comparing average rents, job market, cost of living, and how easy it would be to get around without speaking Norwegian. Trondheim won because Daniel was there already to help us adapt to the change, and because it had a good balance between job market and house market. But here's the thing about Norwegian rentals. You can't actually do anything from abroad unless you're willing to pay an enormous deposit. Most landlords want to meet their tenants in person, and we were like 3,000 kilometers away. So the plan was book an Airbnb for the first month and then apartment hunt in person. Expensive? Yes, but necessary. Now, for something I never thought I need to worry living in Portugal. Not freezing to death. We're talking about moving from one place where 10 degrees Celsius is considered freezing to a place where minus 20 is just a normal Tuesday. My heaviest jacket was a raincoat, and my wife's idea of winter boots were sneakers that weren't mesh. This became a whole new education. We learn about waterproof versus water resistant, base layers, wool socks, and why cheap winter gear is actually expensive, because in the end, it just doesn't work. Our budget was tight, so we became strategic. Second-hand shopping for winter jackets, thermal underwear, we bought everything online and we waited for sales. And the rest, we followed Daniel's advice and we waited until we arrived to Norway to actually buy stuff that we need there. The revelation? Snow boots cost more than I used to spend on rent. But frostbites cost more than snow boots. So let's call it a priority. My wife spent 2 weeks researching the difference between down and synthetic insulation.
And you still don't understand it.
I understand that it matters when it's minus 15 degrees. That's enough for me. Now, this was the big one. How do you get 2 people, a dog and an entire life from Portugal to Norway? Flying was out of question because we didn't trust airlines with Mike, and shipping our belongings would be more expensive than replacing them. But don't forget, our car was tiny and it was already cramped with both of us inside. This led to the hardest decision: selling my car that I absolutely loved. I have spent so much time working on it with my older brother, turning it into something special. It was my baby.
He cried. He actually cried.
I did not cry
Yes, you did.
that much. But love doesn't create space, and we needed room for Mike to travel safely and for all of our belongings. So we made the practical choice. We sold it, and we decided to buy a bigger one, a VW Passat van. Big brother recommendation. The priority was to find a car that we trusted could take us 3,000 kilometers from Portugal to Norway safely, and that would still serve us well once we were there for as long as we needed. First, we mapped the route, 3,000 kilometers through Spain, France, Germany, Belgium, Denmark, and then Norway. That's roughly 30 hours driving, which meant 3 to 4 days with stops. But here's what nobody tells you. Different countries have different rules for pets. We needed health certification, vaccination records, microchip, pet passport. Some borders required specific documentation that needed to be filled 5 days prior to the trip. Then there was the practical stuff. Where do you stop every few hours for bathroom breaks for your dog and for yourself? What if the Passat breaks in the middle of Germany? The car gave us more space for winter clothes, dog supplies, the stuff we weren't selling, and plus Mike could travel with more space and more safety. Now, with everything planned, we need to make this all happen in the right order for the next 6 months. Months 1 and 2, job application, house research, buy winter clothes. Months 3 to 5, sell belongings, pet documentation, and give notice to our jobs and to our landlord. And finally, month 6, final preparations, packing, and say the goodbyes. But you know what? Life doesn't follow plans or binders.
Tell that to me. I had color-coded binders for everything.
Yes, everybody saw your binders. And she actually did. And you know what? Organization is not a crime. Mike's health certification were actually fast. Our passports were the ones that took longer than expected. We decided to get passports in case we wanted to travel outside Europe when we were living in Norway. Our car needed some minor repairs before the long drive, and again, courtesy of the big brother, we needed to fix the heating on the car because we were traveling in the middle of the winter, and if I'm going to freeze to death, at least let me get to my final destination. The stress was incredible. We were dismantling our life while trying to build a new one, and every delay felt like a huge disaster. Here's something I wish someone told me. The hardest part is not the logistic, it's the emotional weight of all the situation. Every item we sold was a memory. Every goodbye felt final. Every bureaucratic mistake felt like it was a sign that we were doing something that we shouldn't. There were nights while we were laying in the bed surrounded by half-packed boxes, thinking if we were making a huge mistake. But then we'd talk to Daniel, or we see another listing on the rental, Or we even watch the Portuguese news and we remind ourselves why we were doing this. And if you're watching this and you're feeling stuck, I get it. The hardest part isn't knowing what you want to change, but believing that you can actually do something about it. We spent so many nights discussing and looking at those binders and thinking this is impossible. But here's what I've learned. You don't need to have it all figured out to start to figuring it out. The first step should always be yours to take. It doesn't have to be moving to another country. It can be research, saving your first 100 euros, making a phone call, learn something new. But it has to be something, because the difference between dreaming and planning is taking the first step. And Mike, by the way, he started to feel something was wrong. He started to follow us even more than usual. He went crazy the first time he saw the suitcases, and we have no way to explain to him that his life was about to completely change forever. So that's how you prepare to completely uproot your life. Badly, stressfully, but with a lot of determination. And with some good binders. Next week I'll walk you through our last week in Portugal. The goodbye dinners, the final packing panic, loading everything we had in the car, and the moment we realize there is no turning back now. Plus, I'll tell you about the items we had to leave behind that made me go crazy. The things that seemed impossible to part with, and why letting go of your stuff is way harder than anyone tells you to. And if you're planning your own international move or just enjoying this chaos, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And seriously, if you have any questions about any of these topics like job hunting abroad, moving with pets, how to buy winter gear for people who are not used to use winter gear, just drop a comment down below and I will try to answer all of your questions. And who knows, maybe I can even help someone do the same thing. Thank you all for watching and see you next week when we actually hit the road. Let's go!